Thank you all for being here today. So before we get started, I do just want to cover a few quick things. Some of you have already heard this before. So for those of you who don't know me, hello and welcome. My name is Linding, so I'm a licensed counsellor and a speaker. Also, I'm currently doing my master's in counselling as well to finish that. But the kind of work that we're doing here in these workshops is a mix of psychoeducation and practical tools. So because my goal is to give you guys the insight, language, tools, so that you can leave here with things that you can actually practically use in your day-to-day life. So, and I do want to be clear about something important. These workshops are not a replacement for therapy, but they are a great complementary for it. So it's something of an extra support, extra learning, extra reflection, and just to offer a safe space to feel supported and for you to come to. And a quick note, today's session will be recorded for educational purposes. Nobody's faces will be in the frame, and if you do choose to share something, it will not be included in the final recording. This is just to put up on YouTube so people who can't come in person can still access the workshop. So lastly, we will be discussing mental health, which can sometimes bring up some strong emotions. So if at any point that you do feel unwell or overwhelmed, you're free to take a breather, leave for a moment, grab something to drink, or you can just leave entirely. I'm not going to be offended. You're perfectly welcome to do that if you need to. You just need to tune into what you need and honor that. All right, so if that all sounds good, we'll get started. And I want to start by saying that something that might surprise you, or it may not as well, is that loneliness isn't just an emotional experience. It's also at a biological level as well. So research shows that chronic loneliness increases your risk of cardiovascular disease, of chronic illnesses, of depression, anxiety, dementia, and it can also affect your sleep. And how it affects your sleep is that it causes micro-awakenings, so your sleep becomes fragmented. And with those micro-awakenings, you're not actually able to access proper restorative sleep. So your body literally can't rest if you do not feel proper connection in your lives. But it can also be a little bit more complex in real life because outwardly, you can appear very social. You can have upwards to 1,000 friends on Facebook and Instagram, right? But you can still experience profound loneliness. And I think 2020 was an excellent example of that. And especially in today's day and age where devices give us that illusion of connectedness. And part of the reason for that is that connection isn't just one singular thing. It actually exists across different layers. Psychologically, we have multiple relational needs. And when one of them is missing, we can often feel lonely even if we are around other people. And researchers often describe 3 layers of loneliness. So the first is intimate loneliness. So this is the absence of a trusted confidant. So someone who knows your inner world really well. So for a lot of people, that's their wife, husband, their parents, best friend, a sibling, a therapist. It's someone who you can call at 2 a.m. They'll drop the hat for you and you can be vulnerable with. And the second is relational loneliness. So this is the absence of friendship networks. So these are your companions, friends, work colleagues, school peers, housemates, neighbors. It's your social circle. And they're the people that you can spend time and do fun things with and do activities with. And then the third is collective loneliness. So this is the absence of belonging to something larger than yourself. So for some people, it's a religious or a church community, a cultural or ethnic community, activist groups, volunteer organizations, online communities that share a same mission, group identity that basically gives you a sense of space and place in the world. And all 3 are incredibly important for our well-being. Understanding which layer you may be missing or a little bit deficient in can tell you what kind of connection that you actually need to try making right now. Because authentic relational well-being is about having the right kinds of connections across all 3 categories, not just having a large circle. So before we move into the research around what actually makes relationship feel connected versus superficial, we're going to do part 1 of a very quick little exercise. And it's only going to take a few minutes, and then we'll come back to part 2 a little later on. So for now, I want you guys to pair up and have a little bit of a back and forth conversation. And you're going to take turns sharing a story for 3 minutes. So the person sharing, you're going to share something that's small but meaningful that's happening to you right now. So it could be something that's stressing you out a little bit, maybe a decision, something that you're contemplating, just something that's been on your mind lately. But nothing too deeply heavy or personal. It is only 3 minutes, and we do want to make you sure that you still feel safe in this environment and comfortable. So if it is a little bit difficult to challenging to talk about something that's current for you, you can also talk about something past that you've already moved through, if that feels better. And so we're going to let this be a natural back and forth conversation for 3 minutes. So although one person is sharing a story, I do want this to be an open dialogue. So it's not a monologue, you're talking together as you normally would, and I'll give you guys a cue at the 2-minute mark, just in case that the sharer hasn't left quite enough room, just a little bit enough room for the other person to have that back and forth exchange. Just to remind you guys, just to pause a little bit more between your words and sentences, just so the other person has an opportunity to jump in. Just however you feel naturally. I just want this to be a natural conversation because we're going to come back to part 2 later. So, and at 3 minutes, I'll pause you guys and we'll swap roles. So we'll do both sides. So the other person will share a story. So I want you guys to find your partners now. Yeah, would you guys like to go together, or would you like to talk to somebody else? All right, so now that we've done that, I just want you to take a moment to sort of mentally note to yourself how that interaction felt to you. We're not trying to analyze it. We're not trying to judge each other. I just want you to remember it for later when we do part 2. So if, as we were talking about before, connection is that essential for our health, the next question becomes, what actually creates it? What fosters it? What makes a relationship feel authentic versus superficial? So this is where the research can help. And there's a concept called perceived partner responsiveness. And it's one of the most empirically supported predictors of relational well-being. It sounds complicated, it's a bit wordy, but I promise you it's beautifully simple. So perceived partner responsiveness means that you believe the person that you're interacting with does 3 things. They understand, they value you, and they care for you. So feeling understood, what is that? So this means that you believe another person grasps your inner world. So your emotions, your identity, your motives, as you perceive them yourself. So not as they imagine them to be, but as you actually are. The second is feeling valued. So validation means that your attributes, your worldview, your experiences, they're all appreciated and respected by this person. It's not just, I understand who you are and I understand you. It's more, I understand you and what I see matters to me. So without this type of validation, self-disclosure becomes risky, or at least it feels really risky. So you stop yourself from saying the things that you want to say. You withhold the parts of you that you feel might not be accepted. And you constantly edit yourself. And when you do that, you can't be authentic. You can't show up as your true self. So the third is feeling cared for. So this is about perceived support. So it's the belief that if you have a need, a genuine need, that this person will respond to you with care and assistance. Because research shows that another person's ability to show real and timely support for you predicts relationship satisfaction, emotional resilience, and even goal attainment, and encourages exploring different aspects of yourself within that relationship. So an authentic relationship helps you to grow. So when all 3 are present, understanding, validation, cared for, you experience intimacy. And this doesn't apply to only just romantic physical intimacy, although that is what I'm sure most of you attribute it to, we all do, but it's psychological intimacy. So a felt sense of being known. Someone knows you. And when one of these is missing, the relationship can sometimes feel somehow incomplete. So the next question is, how do you actually create that experience for someone else and for yourself? Because I know that most of you are interested in having this experience for yourself. And of course, absolutely, you want to experience feeling understood, you want to be validated, and you want to be cared for. Everyone does, it is so natural. But unfortunately, we can't force other people to do this for us. But if you learn this behavior and use it with people, they may naturally start to mirror your sincere efforts. Or you could even ask them for the things that you would like to see from them. So then you can experience it for yourself. And so it's not as complex as you might think. You listen. And it's not passive listening. So it's not while scrolling your phone or planning your next response to what they're saying. High quality listening is an active relational behavior. And it's one of the most powerful mechanisms through which intimacy is built. So let me give you 3 components of high quality listening, because once you see them, you'll start noticing when they're present and when they're not, both in your relationships and probably in yourself too. So the first we have is attention. So this is your presence. So it's directing your full cognitive and physical focus towards the person that you're speaking. So what does it look like? It looks like eye contact, nodding, facial agreement, head tilting, your body orientation. You're not talking to someone while facing away from them. You tilt towards your body, towards them. So you're not glancing at your phone and you're not mentally drafting your grocery list for later this afternoon that you're going to pick up after this. And this is important because speakers, the people that you're listening to, they monitor these cues, even unconsciously. They're watching you. When they feel your attention, they feel a sense of psychological safety. They relax, they'll share more deeply, and they become less defensive. But when that attention is missing, they become self-conscious and retract within themselves. They stop sharing the real stuff. Like, think about your own lives. How many of you have taken a step back after feeling that the other person wasn't really listening or responding to you in a way that you wanted? It's very normal. It's very normal because we want that. We want to feel all these things understood, appreciated, cared for. And when we don't want to share about ourselves at all because we don't feel safe. So the second is appreciation. So this is putting in the effort to properly understand. So it's not just hearing the words that they're saying, it's accurately grasping both the emotional and the cognitive meaning of what's being said. So it can look like paraphrasing, clarifying, reflecting the emotions that you see in them physically displaying, or maybe the emotions that you hear in their words. So, and then asking relevant open questions. So you can say, so what I'm hearing is, or, it sounds like you might have felt dismissed in that moment, is that right? And this communicates a sincere effort on your part to understand their experience. And that effort matters more than you realize. People really value that because most of us actually don't listen to understand one another. We listen to respond. We're waiting for our turn to talk. And I'll expand on this more a little bit later too. And the third is benevolent intention. So this is emotional safety. So it's listening with warmth, not judgmental, and with positive regard. So you show this through the language that you use, the tone of your voice, and non-defensive body posture. So you're not evaluating in that moment whether you believe their feelings or actions were valid for that situation, for example. But the issue is that we're not fully aware of how we sabotage our interactions unconsciously. We interrupt, we fix, we relate things back to ourselves. That reminds me of the time when or we give advice that wasn't asked for, we minimize, at least it wasn't worse, it could have been like this. And these are typically, when you notice them, they're all attempts to manage the conversation towards your own comfort, rather than simply staying present with the person, with what they're saying, and with how it makes you feel. Because those things indirectly communicate, I'm uncomfortable right now with your discomfort. So let me make this easier for me. That's what happens when we do those things. Meanwhile, high quality listening, it says, this does make me a little bit uncomfortable, but I can be with you with this. You don't have to edit your experience for my comfort. There's a massive difference there. So we're going to return to the exercise that we did earlier. So we're going to go back and do the same partners, and you're going to use the same story that you shared previously. But before we start part 2, I want you to come back to that first interaction for a moment. So now that we've spoken about what it means to feel understood, valued, and cared for, I want you to open the workbooks to page 2. And I want you to tick off whether in that earlier interaction you felt understood, valued, and cared for, just based on your experience at the time. So it's not about judging yourself or the other person. We're simply trying to notice how the interaction felt for you. So this is a personal reflection to realize what you do or don't feel in these moments. So we're going to do that same interaction again. And same partners, same stories, but same amount of time, so 3 minutes each. But this time I'm going to get you guys to swap. So whoever was the sharer first, you're going to listen first. Whoever was the sharer first, or sharer second, you're going to share first. Yes. All right. So I'll put up onto the slides the key components of high quality listening that we were just talking about. So you can use that as a reference point when you're listening. So what do we have? We have things like full attention, reflecting back what you're hearing, validating their emotional experience, asking open-ended questions, and not jumping straight into fixing or problem solving. So when you guys are ready, go into your group partner switch again and start that exercise. With that, after this exercise, now I want you to come back to your workbooks again, and we're going to rate that interaction. Same way, so you're just going to tick off whether you felt understood, valued, cared for. Just based on how that conversation felt for you. Again, we're not judging yourself or others. And again, it is a little bit hard because it is such a short conversation, and it is definitely easier to see and feel this in longer interactions, but this should be hopefully a little bit of a taste test of that. So, if you would like to, you can also jot down a few notes on what the other person did that made you feel that they were listening to you. Or if you don't want to write anything, you can also just take a mental note. Because often, noticing what helped you feel heard can enlighten you for how you might show that you're listening to others as well. So, who felt in that second interaction that there was a little bit of a difference in their felt experience of being listened to? Good. And who didn't feel much difference at all? That's okay too. All right. So it sounds like what you guys noticed is that the same story with the same people produces a completely different emotional experience solely based on the quality of the listening. So that's what I mean by perceived partner responsiveness. So now that we've done that, I want to zoom out a little bit and talk about how relationships thrive over time. And there's a metaphor that I find incredibly useful, and it's the relationship bank account. So now we're talking finances for your relationship. Because every interaction with someone is either a deposit or a withdrawal for that relationship. So deposits are the things that build trust and goodwill over time, while withdrawals are the things that slowly wear down the relationship. And over time, the overall health of the relationship is shared by the balance of these two. But it's usually not grand gestures, so it's not like surprise trips, expensive gifts, big apologies that really matter. They can matter, of course. But researchers show that relationships thrive through cumulative micro interactions, not just the grand gestures. So you can think of it like adding $5 to your bank account every day over a month, to your savings account every day over a month, versus $50 once a month. Big difference there. So I want to ask, what do you guys believe is a gesture that's a deposit? So we have one here already. I slightly blacked out the other ones, but we have listening without distraction. Can anybody think of anything else could be a deposit type of behavior or action? Checking in, yeah, absolutely. Just checking in, asking how they are, just sending a hey, thinking of you message. Yeah, that's one. So what else do we have? So we can remember a detail that they mentioned last week and just checking up on them, asking them about that again. Expressing appreciation for something that they've done. Sending a text, like you mentioned, that just says, I'm thinking of you. Or putting your phone down when they enter the room, because there's a big difference between me talking like this and then me talking to you like this. There's a big difference between having my phone in my hand versus me just talking to you without the phone anywhere near me. It feels different, doesn't it? So, and you can even celebrate their wins, and I mean even the tiny little minuscule wins. You guys came here today, that's a win, right? Hopefully at least, I would hope you see it that way. Or you can just listen without trying to fix or problem solve. physical affection if you're in a relationship, following through with what you said you'd do. But do you notice that these are all very small things? They take seconds, but they compound. And withdrawals are equally as small. So phone distraction when people are talking to you, forgetting something important to them. One-word replies, constantly cancelling plans last minute, giving advice when they just wanted your empathy and presence. Again, they're all small, but they erode trust very quickly. And here's the part that surprises people. Neutrality actually often harms relationships and connections more than conflict. So you'd think the opposite, right? You'd think conflict would be more damaging. But research on relational maintenance shows that neglect creates a sort of slow disconnect that is harder to repair than any single conflict. Because at least conflict indicates to you that the relationship matters enough to fight about. Neutrality signals indifference, which you could also say is the end of the relationship. So let me ask you one thing about your closest relationships right now. And they don't have to be romantic necessarily, but it could be friendships or familial too. What are your consistent deposits? And a harder question, what are your unintentional withdrawals? So the things that you do or don't do that are slowly withering away trust without you realizing. For a lot of us, the biggest contender for that is distraction. So we can be very physically present, but mentally we're elsewhere. We're in the same room, but we're not actually with the person. We're thinking about something else while they're speaking to us, or it's forgetting. So they told you about something that was important to them, and you completely forgot, or they had to remind you. And again, it's not because you don't care. Could be, but I want to say most of the time it's not because you don't care. But because life just got really busy, it slipped your mind, you didn't mean to. But to them, it registers as this didn't even matter enough for them to even simply just remember. I don't matter enough. Sounds a bit extreme, but that is how it feels to people. So the relationship bank account framework helps you see patterns that you might be blind to right now. Because a thriving relationship is not a perfect relationship. It's a relationship built on a high deposit to withdrawal ratio. So you're going to make withdrawals. Everyone does. The question is, are you making enough deposits to keep the account healthy, to keep the relationship account healthy and in the green? And the good thing is that deposits are easier to make than you might think. We've already touched on a lot of it already, but they only mainly just require your presence, your attention, your responsiveness. The small stuff is the big stuff here. So on that, let's move on to exercise 2. So I'm going to have you do a quick audit of your own interactional patterns, and you'll do it in small groups. So I'm going to split you guys into groups of 3. And the structure is that you're going to brainstorm 2 lists. I'll give you guys the lists here that you can write down on. So the first column, we're going to have deposits. And the second column, we're going to have withdrawals. And I just want you guys to brainstorm what could be some withdrawals and what could be some deposits made for relationships. And if you can, try to be specific about it as well. So it's not kind of just being nice or communicate better. You know, it's remembering a coffee order or asking how their meeting went last week, checking in when they've been quiet. Those are more deposits. And so scrolling while they're talking, cancelling last minute repeatedly, giving advice when they wanted empathy, trying to fix. Those are all withdrawals. So I'll give you guys 5 minutes to generate as many ideas as possible in each category. So I'll get you guys to go 3. How many things have you got for each list? Got quite a few? Good. That's actually a very good thing. That's what we want, right? Because exactly that. We want that ratio, that 5-to-1 ratio. So it's good that you've got more deposits than you do have withdrawals. So that's a very good thing. But maybe with the withdrawals, you've noticed what things maybe you might be doing as well that you don't realize. So, well, I was going to do more to this activity, and I was going to get you guys to rank the top 3 most powerful and rank the top 3 most damaging from your lists, but we are running a little short on time, so we're going to have to quickly skip that one. If you want, I don't have this in the workbook because I was also planning to do this in session, but we might again need to speed things up a little bit. If you wanted to, these are 3 questions that I was going to get you to do for a little bit of a personal reflection. If you're happy to either write them down or take a picture of this and do it in your own time, I would highly recommend it as well. But let's move on and talk about something that everyone is doing without realizing it, which is making bids. So what is a bid? So a bid is any small attempt someone makes to connect with you, and it could be incredibly small. So the deposits are actually a little form of a bid too. So we're talking about tiny everyday moments that most of us miss without even realizing. And so what can a bid look like? Someone shares good news with you. Hey, I got a promotion. Someone sends you a meme. Someone points something out like, hey, look at that sunset. You know, someone makes eye contact from across the room. Someone touches your arm while you're talking. Someone says, hey, guess what happened? These are all micro invitations. They're saying indirectly, connect with me right now. I'm reaching out to you. So, and the research shows that how often you respond to these bids is one of the strongest predictors of the health of the relationship. And relationship experts say that how often you respond to your partners or your relationships' bids for connection is one of the most accurate predictors of that relationship if it will continue to thrive or end in divorce. So that tells us that these bids are important for the person who is making them. And you have 3 options when someone makes a bid. So you can turn towards the bid, engage with it, respond with interest. Hey, tell me more, match their energy. This meme is hilarious. Oh my God, that sunset is fantastic, right? Or you can turn away from the bid, miss it entirely, just not paying attention, not listening it, because you're distracted maybe by your own thoughts or possibly things around you. They say something and you don't respond. And although maybe you're not trying to be rude, from their perspective, you ignored them and you ignored their attempt at connection. Or you can turn against the bid. Now, this is a little bit more uncommon, but actively dismissing it or minimalizing it. So saying, you know, that's not a big deal. I'm really stressed and I'm busy right now. I'm sorry, I can't handle that. Or, why are you showing me this? It's not really that funny. So turning against or turning away does nearly the same amount of harm over time. And I tried to illustrate that with that graph up there. Because when bids are repeatedly missed, people stop making them. They stop trying to reach out. They stop trying to connect with you because when they feel like they pass you the ball, you drop it. And whether intentionally or unintentionally, and who wants to play ball with somebody who's not going to play back? So thinking about in your own life, you share something with someone and they don't respond. You try again later and they still don't respond. Eventually you stop trying because you don't want to feel that disappointment again and you don't see that it's going to end any different. So why keep reaching out towards somebody who's not reaching back? So that's how relationships slowly die. So it can be through conflict, but oftentimes it's not. And John Gottman's research on married couples found that partners in stable, healthy relationships acknowledged and responded to bids given by their partners 86% of the time. Partners who eventually divorced, they responded to those bids only 33% of the time. That is a huge difference. 86 versus 33. And you might have realized already, but the thing is that most of the bids that we give, or that we miss, are missed unintentionally. We're not trying to hurt anyone, we're just distracted. We're tired, we're preoccupied, we're overwhelmed, we're scrolling. But the impact that it has on the other person is the same. The other person feels unseen, unvalued, unappreciated, unloved. And maybe you felt this too. So when you do turn towards bids consistently, people feel safe offering themselves, more of themselves to you. They share deeper aspects of themselves. They trust you to feel vulnerable with you because you're showing that you're with them. You're attuned to them and you're attentive of them. Meanwhile, when you turn away, people withdraw and they stop sharing. They stop reaching. So here's a question I want you to sit with. How many bids are you missing in your daily life? Maybe because you're distracted, overwhelmed, tired, or just not paying attention. And what would change if you started turning towards those bids instead? And remember, they're small, so your response lane needs to be small too. So we're going to do one more exercise, and I'm going to call it bid or no bid, not trademarked. So it's a little spin-off of Deal or No Deal, if we remember that show. Yeah, it's a good show. So, one too many. So here's how it works. I'm going to read out examples, and you're going to answer out loud. Is it a bid for connection or not a bid? So things like we touched on earlier, look at the sunset. You know, I got the job. Do you want to watch something? I'm exhausted. Or it's an act of just silence but lingering eye contact. Because I want you to start thinking about and recognizing what bids actually are and how subtle they can be. So if you can, turn away from those pages that you have open right now. That's a cheat sheet. All right, so we're going to go for the first one. Look at this funny video. Bid or no bid? Bid, yes. Exactly that. They're trying to invite you into their world. They find something amusing. They want to bring joy to you too. So second one, do you think I handled this situation okay? Bid or no bid? Bid, yes, exactly. They respect your opinion and they want to hear how you think about it. The dog needs to be fed. Bid or no bid? Oh, getting some faces now. Some no bids? No bid? No bid. No bid. It could. They can be a little bit subjective, but typically the ones that are more logistical are no bids. It's just the dog needs to be fed. It's not really a statement trying to connect. Could be, but I want to put more in the category of not. Okay, next one. Sitting close to you on the couch, but not speaking.
No bid. More context.
Yes. It could be more context required. Yes, it is a bit of a challenging one. What do you think it leans more towards then? Bid?
I think no bid.
No bid? I want to put it more as a bid. A little bit more as a bid. It could be not. They are, again, it is a bit more, you do need a little bit more context, but I want to put it as more of a bid because if they sit close to you, it's a bit different than sitting further away from you, I think, or sitting like a good distance away. So next one. I've been feeling really stressed lately. Bid or no bid?
Bid.
Bid, yes, good. So I've been thinking about changing careers. Bid, yes. Did you pay the electricity bill? No bid, yes. Again, more logistical. It could be a bid, but I want to put it more in the category of not a bid. Asking to taste the food they cooked.
Oh, definitely bid.
Yes, bid, exactly. They want your input, they want your feedback, they want to connect with you, they want to know that you liked it. Maybe you don't, but don't say that. All right, can you close the window, please? Bid or no bid?
No bid.
I want to say more and no bid. Again, could be, but I want to say it's a little bit more logistical. But maybe you are connecting with them. Maybe after an argument, this is all that you can kind of manage, and that's fine too. Leaning their head on your shoulder. Bid or no bid? Bid, yes. Sending a meme. Bid or no bid? Bid, yes, exactly. They're trying to introduce you to their world. I feel a bit lost.
Bid.
Yes, bid, exactly. All right, I heard this joke today. Do you want to hear it? Bid, yes, exactly. They're trying to bring you into their emotional world again, a little bit. So can you see that there are actually more bids than maybe you had originally thought there were? Hands up if we listed more bids for connection than you had kind of like thought there previously were. Or maybe you already thought there was. Or also, keep your hands up if you see these little moments a little bit differently now. Yeah, good. Okay, well, I like that we had more hands for that one. So you guys have all noticed, but there is a list, more extensive list of these bids. They're not all of them because there's about 1,000 of them, but there's some more common ones and also some categories, so you can kind of figure out maybe what they're after with those types of bids that they're making. So I hope the power of this exercise shows you that bids are everywhere, and you start to see them after this. In your relationships, in your daily life, in the moments that maybe you used to overlook. And once you see them, you can choose to respond differently if you so want to. You don't have to as well. So we've covered a lot of ground about how to build connection. We've covered listening, deposits, bids, and now I want to talk about what happens when conflict enters the picture. Because truthfully, conflict is inevitable in any person-to-person connection because we are not the same person. We all have different lives and we all have different ways of responding. So the question is how you navigate it then. And there's a fork in the road that'll help, and it's reactivity versus curiosity. And so this is my favorite part about today because I love the topic of curiosity. So reactivity is the default defensive state that comes out when you feel threatened, when you feel misunderstood, when you feel emotionally activated. And it's not just behavioral, it is psychological and physiological as well. So reactivity, it looks like defensiveness, blame, counterattacking, withdrawals. You're certain about your story and your truth. Reactivity is self-protection at the core. When you feel emotionally hurt or betrayed, your internal system prioritizes protecting you over understanding. You do not care anymore. You do not care for anything because you are hurt right now. So your system is not trying to connect in that state. And that creates escalation loops. So one person reacts, the other defends and then reacts, and then you respond defensively and react. The conflict just intensifies then, and you end up further apart rather than closer. Now, curiosity. Curiosity is the counter state to reactivity. So curiosity is an active engagement with the aspects of another person's inner world. It involves entering their world, their perspective, their experience, their emotional meaning, and just listening without an attachment to any outcome. It also means not judging too quickly. You may think you know why someone has done something. You can be absolutely sure of that. But ask them with genuine curiosity and you may find, surprisingly, that the answer is vastly different. Because everyone is very complex and have lived such unique lives that shape how and why we do things. So even though it seems unreasonable to you, to them, it is extremely reasonable. So you just gotta figure out why. Curiosity seeks to understand that. And so it expands both you and the relationship. Curiosity de-escalates reactivity naturally. But the hard thing about curiosity is that it requires tolerance for your own emotional discomfort. When you're hurt, your body wants to shut down. It wants to defend. It wants to self-protect. But curiosity asks you to do the direct opposite of that, to stay engaged, to stay open and stay receptive. And that's psychologically very demanding and not intuitive at all. Let me give you an example. So say your partner or your friend says something that feels like direct criticism to you. Your immediate reaction is, hey, that's not fair. You always do this. What about the time when you... And they go on. Now, was there any curiosity in that type of response? What do you guys think? Was there reactivity in that response? Yeah, it was all self-protection. They got hurt. They just wanted to ease the pain. And that's what reactivity is self-protection. So you're counterattacking and you're trying to win. Curiosity would sound like, that landed kind of hard for me and I feel a little bit hurt by that. Can you help me understand what you're actually feeling right now? So you still state what you're feeling, but you also act with curiosity. So it's the same triggering moment, but a completely different response, where one escalates and the other one opens. And what curiosity does in that instance is that it transforms the function of the conflict into an opportunity for discovery instead. So you're not enemies trying to defeat each other. You're friends, your partners, your collaborators, trying to understand what's happening between you. So that shift sort of changes things, right? But it requires you to do something that is very counterintuitive when you're hurt, right? You need to get curious about the other person who just hurt you. And that's hard to do in the moment because of everything else. But it's the most powerful tool that you can use in those moments of conflict to end the conflict and come back closer. And it doesn't just work in moments of conflict either. Anytime you want to increase how close you feel with somebody, just make your number one goal, get curious. If you experience social anxiety going into any sort of room, make your number one goal, get curious. You will get so close with people just by doing that. And there's another aspect of a curiosity that's important to know as well. And this is also one thing that ties into this as well. Because even if you are curious, you're still interpreting reality through your own story. And so this is where narratives come in, because one of the biggest shifts is understanding that two people can live through the exact same moment and walk away with completely different emotional realities. And we've seen this in twin studies as well, because each person filters their experience through their own beliefs, their history, and meaning making. And we kind of touched on that a little earlier as well. And we treat our own interpretation as the only reality that exists. This is what happened. There's no other way to see it. But the more accurate sentence would be, this is how I experienced what happened. And they're not the same thing. So how does this all come back to curiosity? Well, reactivity is essentially saying your version or my version is right, your version is wrong. So you defend, you attack, and you try to win. Curiosity says, my version is still very real and very valid, but help me understand your version as well. Because both can be true. Understanding someone's story does not mean abandoning your own and that your story doesn't matter anymore. It absolutely still does. Both can exist at the same time. It means recognizing that it is real for them. And when you can do that, when you can stop trying to win the story, the conflict changes and moves from a debate into more of a conversation. And this applies everywhere. It applies to romantic relationships, to friendships, families, workplaces. We're all walking around with private narratives about shared experiences and treating them as the facts and wondering then why we feel misunderstood. So once you can feel that my truth isn't the truth, it is my experience of the truth, you create space for someone else's reality to exist beside yours, alongside yours. And then the resolution just becomes so much more easier from there. All right, so we've covered a lot today. We're almost done. I can see you guys slowly fading. So we talked about the biology of connection, the formula for being known, the behaviors that build intimacy, the bids we miss, the choice between reactivity and curiosity, and the reality that we all carry different narratives. So when you do find yourself reacting again, see if you can pause within yourself and just ask, are you moving towards reactivity or curiosity? Are you trying to win or are you trying to understand? Are you treating your narrative as fact or as one interpretation among many? And then if you can, make a different choice. Ask what's happening inside you right now. Say, help me understand your experience of this. Say, I see it differently, but I want to understand how you see it. And those questions will change the nature of the relationship, because then you're working together to understand what's happening between you. And that sort of collaborative stance is what allows relationships to not just thrive, but grow because of it. And that is what leads to building and maintaining authentic connections. So listen with presence, turn towards bids, make deposits, get curious, hold multiple truths, transform that conflict into discovery. It's responsiveness, not by avoiding hard moments, but by coming at them with curiosity. So now that you have the tools, the question is, are you going to use them? So before we finish, I just want to take a quick moment to acknowledge all the hard work that you guys have done today. So thank you all for being here. Connection is something that most of us were never actually really taught. We're just kind of expected to know how to do it. But as most of us have seen today, it's about the small moments, how we listen, how we respond, how we show up. And those moments, those very small moments, shape the health of relationships over time. So if there's something that I want you to walk away with today, it's that connection grows from consistent everyday moments where someone feels seen, they feel heard, and they feel understood. And those moments, now know how to create more intentionally. So thank you guys so much for coming today. We run regular monthly workshops like this. I'll also provide a breathwork audio and if you're feeling anxious about any sort of relationships or connections, I'll do a breathwork audio and it'll be up on YouTube tomorrow as well.